Hey, how's it going, everybody? I'm Jules Leyhe. I am thrilled today to be joined by my slide guitar wizard buddy, none other than Mr. Walt Druce.
G'day all.
Good day, Walt. Great to see you, man. Thank you so much for coming on the channel. This is super cool. Walt and I have a number of things in common for sure. One of the things that we really want to get to in this video is cracking the code of open E tuning. This is something that we both kind of play a lot in, and really, I think Walt and I just have this. We have a lot of little things in the tuning that we want to show you guys, some things that we love about it. Maybe demystify this for some of you folks out there who, might want to break out of some barriers that you have. So that's my specific intention here with having Walt on. And Walt, definitely, you're just to brag about you for a sec. You're a great slide player. If you don't know Walt's playing yet, he has a number of really great videos. I mean, all of his videos are great, but he has a number of viral videos. He has a Voodoo Child video, a Superstition video. I think Isn't She Lovely? They're all in the like hundreds of thousands to even like 1 million and beyond views. So to me, these not only caught my attention, but really sort of, I'd love to get right into some of the techniques of what you're doing. We'll talk about all sorts of stuff, but maybe what we could do first is, when you're taking a tune like Superstition, or, there's another video of you doing Crossroads. Maybe we could talk about a couple of those and just, slide guitar, instead of just sliding all the notes, there's a whole lot of other stuff going on that you're doing and you're playing specifically. We're talking about like fretting behind the slide, fretting and not even playing slide, in this tuning. And maybe you could play a little example of one of those tunes that I mentioned, and then we can break down a little bit of the techniques that you're using.
Yeah, for sure. Yeah, like that's one of my favorite things to do is like really rearrange the songs for open tuning. And like it doesn't always work perfectly, but I find that it's a really good exercise to getting to know the tuning better. Because you got to use your imagination and sort of work out different ways to play it. So like Crossroads is a good example because it's one of those classic riffs that we all learn as guitarists in standard tuning, but you can't necessarily play it the same way in open tuning and while wearing a slide at the same time. So I sort of came up with this way playing behind the slide. I'll play it for you and then we can have a look at it. So. So, cheers, man. So yeah, it is a blues, and it's something that I can jam on for hours on end. I absolutely love playing the blues. There's a couple of things actually with this version that is a great thing to practice is I'm not playing in the open key of this guitar. This happens to be in open C, which is exactly the same as open E, just down a third, the same configuration. And I'm also playing it what I consider... this can get confusing pretty quickly when we start talking about concert pitch and what I'm actually thinking about, because I still think of this guitar in as an open E tuning. So if I'm playing up here on the 4th fret as a bar chord, I think of that as A flat, even though I know concert pitch it's not an A flat. So just it can get a bit confusing sometimes. But just as a note, it's I'm playing off the 4th fret there, so I would be considering it A flat, but it's actually in the key of E, like concert pitch. So it's using a few different techniques as well, like you mentioned before, the behind the slide. So that's a whole technique in itself. That's we could probably do an entire video just on that. But just basically talk a little bit about it. It's about having a light touch with the slide, light enough so that when you press the string down behind the slide while still keeping the slide there in the same position, it's going to sound the note that you're fretting with your first finger. So it can take a bit of getting used to, and ways that I used to practice it would be just playing between 2 frets. Say if I was playing between the 4th fret and the 2nd fret, and just keep the slide stationary and play up each string. You get what I mean?
So something like this, in the same key. This might sound up higher, but it sounds like you're talking about something like this, like.
Exactly. So yeah, it's a great way of really getting into that whole behind the slide, and then you can play around with different patterns and start to mix in slide notes among the behind the slide. Anyway, they're great ways to sort of, I guess, play around and get used to it, because in reality, that's how I improve a lot of the techniques. Is I muck around a lot, I noodle, and then I jam. Always sort of trying to keep some type of rhythm in mind, because I always find rhythm is king, as well as applying it to songs, like I showed you there with Crossroads, applying a lot of those techniques. And again, like you mentioned, you might have noticed a lot of the notes I was actually playing aren't with the slide. So it's I never really considered myself a slide player. I just consider myself a guitar player who wears a slide, right? So it's like, it's another expression that I have access to just because I'm wearing it. It is a bit of a compromise at times because you only have 3 fingers left to play the fretted notes, but I think it's a worthwhile compromise.
Sure. And just a note for everybody else who's watching out there, there's one other thing that I really love to, well, here's another way that this sort of fretting behind the slide thing is immediately very handy. And I'm so just for everyone out there, while Walt is in open C and I'm in open E, so they're the same tuning, they're just in different keys, right? The intervals between the notes and the strings are all the same. And so getting up into the 12th fret for me, this sounds E. One of the most common, or one of my most commonly used fretting behind the slide things is simply turning this E major chord into an E minor chord. And all you do is you turn that 3rd string, the G sharp, into a G natural by fretting it with my index finger right behind. And it's very simple. If you're brand new to this, when you fret a note, it simply goes beneath the slide. So that's how this physically works. And hence having to sort of have a lighter touch or just be sort of aware of your touch. But check this out. Open E tuning, E major. You want to play E minor? No problem. Just fret the 12th fret with your slide and then fret your index finger at the 11th fret. And then a little run there at the end, a little flourish. But you can see, right? So there's like 2 frets behind. You get all these things. 1 fret behind. This is like a Lydian chord voicing. I'm just flatting the 5th. This is that same triad, E, G sharp, B. But instead of E, G sharp, B, I'm going to turn it into a Lydian chord by turning that B into an A sharp. Right? So just in those 2 strings, fretting 1 note behind, there's so much there. So this is just, we really, between us kind of breaking down some of our favorite techniques and things that we do in this video, we want to inspire you guys out there watching this to sort of experiment around. Walt was saying a lot of his techniques and just playing and everything comes from, experimenting and making a bunch of mistakes, and then you kind of get these little things that become a part of your sound. So I love that about, when I'm watching you play, and it helps us sort of talk to you about it to demystify a little bit of what you're doing in those videos. And as smoking as the playing is, I mean, it really is beautiful. It just helps make it a little bit more like something that we might be able to adapt into our own playing, which is, it's really, really cool to just sort of, decode the whole thing just a little bit.
Yeah, I understand that. That's a good point.
Yeah, yeah, that's really cool. The fretting behind the slide thing is just awesome. Now, here's something that I love, to talk about with you, which is the tuning. And there are these zones. Like one thing that you mentioned when you were talking about Crossroads is simply not just playing in the open, like in your case, not just playing in the open C key, but playing in different keys. And I guess I'm just curious about, um, what are some things that you do to, like, what are some positions that you like to play in that aren't just the, like in my case, in the key of E, a lot of people would just kind of go up to the 12th fret. And while that's fine, it's sort of limiting. We don't want to just be limited by going, oh, well, key of E, great, I've got my one little zone. Well, are there any sort of positions that you really like to play in this tuning, or things that you like that? Because to me, and I've got a few things to say about this in a sec, but definitely have some, the tuning is advantageous in a couple of ways. And I'm just curious how you like to use it, thinking about
Yeah.
that stuff we're talking about.
Well, it's a good question because like it did take a fair bit of getting used to at first, like finding areas of the neck I'm comfortable in and everything like that. And then now it's well put how you say there's areas of the neck where I sort of gravitate to because I like the sounds that you can sort of access from them. But like I guess the idea that I really wanted at first was to be able to play up and down the neck without any worries. Like if I just take the open key and going any direction on the neck and any area, and like obviously we find licks in certain areas of the neck, but I just want it to be comfortable and sort of I might have been playing a bit too fast there, but I want it to be musical as well, like no matter what area of the neck I'm in. And to answer your question, yeah, there are areas that I do favor, particularly in the key of the guitar, so the open C. I would say this area just below the 5th fret I play in a lot, just because it falls easily underneath the fingers, like particularly pentatonic. Pentatonic seems to be a foundation for a lot of blues guitarists. So that's where I'm at. I'm a blues guitarist. So, and also this is another thing I just caught myself is there's this cool little thing in open tuning where you have sort of the same note within reach of each other, and it can be a bit cumbersome at times, but it also you can use it to your advantage. And I do catch myself, like just as I did then, playing a double note.
Like a false fingering,
But
right? It's like a false fingering, like a sax player or something.
yeah,
It's that
exactly.
sort of thing, right?
But then it sort of gets used in, like, if I find an example, I'll... yeah. Like, there's this... Yeah, exactly. You said it perfectly. The false fingering like a saxophone player.
And that also, just hearing you play that lick and really kind of milk it, it reminds me of Jan Hammer and Jeff Beck.
Well, that's where I sort of think of it from, the Jeff Beck idea of where that where he bends up past the note and then falls back down on the whole tone below.
It's a lot like emulating the pitch bend of a synthesizer or something. It's that kind. It's quirky. It's a little off kilter and really interesting sound.
Yeah, so that's where I get that idea from. But yeah, it's to come back to the original question, I feel comfortable anywhere on the neck now. So it's more so a question of what does the music call for. I don't know. It's a hard, because I still fall into like box shapes sometimes, and I'll get stuck there occasionally. But I feel freer and freer the more and more time I spend with open tuning.
Yeah, that's awesome, man. And here for just like a little playing example of something that I really like with this open E tuning. And like, here's an example. I'm just gonna play similar ideas, but in a couple of different places, and then just sort of give a little evaluation of why I might do one of these licks in one position and maybe not the other, or just how it might be a little different. So check this out. And again, I'm being a little redundant, but I just want everybody to know I'm in open E. So this is going to sound in the key of E now, right? So check this out. So that's top string, first string root with just the open string. And then I've done the 5th fret up here. And what I like is that you get different notes beneath the root. So here's what I mean. Here's the root. And for the 1st and 2nd string, you get the 5th and then the root. Now, if you move down and you move your root to the 5th fret of the 2nd string, so same root, but now beneath that is the 6. Right? So already that's a different phrase that's available just from the tuning. Now the next root that I have is on the 3rd string at the 8th fret. And this, if we just play a full chord, this sounds a C chord here at the 8th fret. But we're just worrying about one note at a time. So this is the E, and you can see below it is the flat 6, right? Because we're kind of in a different part of the triad here as far as what the tuning is offering. But what this does now is it gives you these cool little, like above the root is a G. So now this is kind of like E minor sounding, right? But what this does is if I just use that half step away from a major note on either side, right? And then I started kind of going out of position there. But you can see the tuning is doing all of that for me. There are all these different little phrases, different little ways of playing these things. Then probably the easiest or sort of most baked in the cake one of all would just be to play all this stuff up at the 12th fret, where you get all of your kind of licks that you might feel most comfortable with, sort of like this.
Awesome. It sounds so good. And I have to say, your tone is amazing at the moment.
Thanks,
it's
man.
always amazing, but there's something special about that Mulecaster, right?
Oh, thanks, man. Yeah. And, we are both here with our Mulecasters.
Coincidence.
Let's just talk about the Mulecasters for a sec, because I really do.
Actually, before we jump on, I wanted to just stay on that topic for a little bit longer, because I'm curious, because for me, the way that I map out the fretboard is with triads. That's my cage system for the whole thing. So I no matter what key I'm in, I'm basing it off the triad within that key. So just for lack of finding a different key, I'm just going to use open C. So wherever I'm at, I'm aware of all the triads in that is C, no matter no matter where I am. That's where how I find myself on the fretboard. So I'm aware that this is the 5th degree in that triad, and if I want to get to the 6th, I just have to slide up 2 frets, right? And that's how I'm finding my way around the fretboard. And I was just listening to you explain, I guess, certain ways of finding your melodies before, and I was just curious if you see the fretboard in the same way.
Yeah, thank you so much for bringing that up, because I definitely get asked, and I'm sure you do too, just about is there a caged system for slide? Is it the same thing, but we're just in this different tuning? And it really is for me, it's more of this. It's more about like understanding where your triads are. I think it's about triads. And so I'm really glad you said that. Also like just being aware of what, like when you're playing a note on a string group, uh, one thing that you can do is, so like here I'm playing my E on the third string at the eighth fret. And what I can do is, instead of this note below being unusable because it's the flat six right here, like, and I'm trying to be in the key of E, what I can do is I'll try to modify that and I'll go, oh, well, hey, if I just fret behind on the fourth string. So now I've got B, E, G, and that sounds an E minor triad. So what another thing I could do is, instead of going like this, I could play the third, second, and first strings. And while that's a C major triad, spelled E, G, C, if we lower that top string, the first string, down a half step, that becomes... That's your E minor triad right there. So you can do that sort of thing in every single position. And that's exactly what you're just talking about, Walt. I definitely think about things more in like dyads and triads. And there is definitely space for seventh chords and just bigger voicings. But especially if you're just kind of getting used to all this stuff, or maybe you have just a couple licks, I think the way to go and the way to ultimately master this fretboard and this tuning is by just doing little bite-sized things.
Yeah,
So,
certainly.
right, and so yeah, I appreciate that. And you can absolutely just, the way that you just played all your triads up, and the way that you played when you were demonstrating superstition, and you just showed that there weren't any holes. You could get from here to up here really confidently and comfortably at whatever speed it was. Maybe it was a little faster, but no, you were ripping, and you just clearly showed that there aren't any empty spots on the fretboard. So I think of it as triads, and I just make sure that if I can play one thing that I like to do too is like this. This is extremely simple as far as an example is concerned, but if you give yourself just a little lick like this.
Yeah.
Right? And that's like a super simple, mi, re, do, like 3, 2, 1. And I'm just doing that on every single string. And I'm making sure that I can just confidently do that and comfortably. Then that translates to things like you might want to go like, right? Different string. Just be able to catch a little phrase, right? Like play it all over.
That's an awesome exercise. Like I always recommend that anyone should. I call it like transferring between the string sets, like taking whether it be a chord, a lick, like you just showed. I find that's what's going to get you to really understand the neck in so many different levels.
Yeah, exactly, man. That's it. And all of this gets you away from just playing licks.
Exactly. Yes.
And we love licks, but we don't want to just regurgitate licks and just sort of like copy paste. That's not a really inspired. That gets boring pretty quick, not just for the player, but for the listener. If they kind of know where you're going with it, and they literally might have heard you do it the same sort of thing in the last song, that's just not what we're aiming for here. So, yeah, having that sort of just ability to, play something all over the neck, visualize it's funny because this ends up being how you visualize it, because you just know where everything is and you've spent the time. It doesn't necessarily like visually pop first. I think it ends up sort of being available to you, and you just go, oh, hey, I've got it. I mean, when you did that one rip and lick from the bottom to the top, you weren't hesitating at any point there. And so this sort of practice really helps you get comfortable with the whole, just takes the holes out of your fretboard.
Yeah, exactly. That's well put, man.
Yeah.
So I guess we could jump into the Mulecaster that I cut you off earlier.
Yeah, no. And so when What? Yeah. When did you get yours?
That's a good question. I'm pretty sure it was 2022. So just oh man, yeah, I think it has been 2 years. It has been over 2 years now. So it's been a little while, but it's become easily my most inspiring instrument that I have. Like anytime I really feel like writing something, I'll pick up this guitar first.
Yeah. Yeah.
It's an amazing instrument. I'm sure you'll agree. Just seeing the joy you get playing with yours.
Yeah, absolutely. And also, I just think it's really cool. So when I got mine, which was in April of this year being 2024, so I've had it for like the better part of a year, about 8 months or so. I got it, and then the first gig that I had with it was playing the national anthem at a San Francisco Giants game, which was amazing. I had the whole ballpark to myself, and I thought, as much as I'm an open E tuned guy most of the time, I thought since I had the whole joint to myself that I'd tune my guitar down a little bit. So I tuned it to open C sharp, which is just a half step above where Walt is right now. And man, it just I love that about the Mulecaster. It can definitely handle those lower tunings really well. And yeah, I just I instantly just kind of fell in love with the guitar. That was literally the first gig I had with it, was this
Man,
stadium anthem.
what an incredible way to break in the guitar. That's amazing. And
Yeah, it was
I
great,
am
man.
curious when you did tune down to your open C sharp. What type of setup did you have? Did you change the guitar setup at all, was it just as is?
As is. I haven't changed anything with this guitar. I do also play slide on my SG, and I have that action just set a little bit lower. It's comparable, but that action is just a little bit lower. Um, they're totally like apples and oranges. It's very similar setup, but I would say that the SG is a little lower, and it's mainly because I do some other, well, it's slightly more Derek Trucks leaning licks. Um, Obviously he's a hero, and I love to I play in an Allman Brothers cover band where I
Awesome.
really lean into the Dwayne and Derek stuff quite a bit. But the most specific reason that that one's a little bit lower is that I like to actually fret with the slide. And I go into great detail about that and other stuff in my Derek Trucks Masterclass course. There's definitely a link to that in the description below. But fretting with the slide is a whole interesting texture and tactile experience that you get. And it's like you said about something else earlier. It could really go off on a tangent and talk about that for quite a while. But ultimately, I have not touched the setup of this guitar. It feels just about perfect. I mean, they send it to you, and they kind of want to just wait. Mule just wants to get your email where you go, "Oh my gosh, it's perfect."
Yeah,
It is
I had
perfect.
the
It's
same
just great.
experience, man. It was perfect from the get go. And like the only thing I've changed with this the string gauges. Like I played around a lot with the different string gauges because I like you know so you would sort of want to play around with tension because it did arrive in B standard
Mm-hmm.
tuning, so like a baritone standard tuning guitar. So yeah, I played around quite a bit with the string gauges to find the right gauges that suit open C tuning for me.
Cool, cool. And that's a thing for me too. I used to play with strings that were just too tight, and they were too thick, and they were strung up too high. I had the action up too high. And so I appreciate, right now I'm playing 11 to 50s tuned to open E, and it just feels right. I can bend the strings, I can handle them. They're not strung too tight. They're definitely not too like spaghetti. They're not spaghetti strings. They're not too loose or anything. For me, that sort of 11 for tune to open E is like a really good feel. And yeah, it allows me to dig in. I can still play light enough. The tone's there. So for me, I feel like I found a really magic sort of happening, spot that it's all there in this zone with these strings and this setup and everything.
Yeah.
Now I'm curious about something else. And now that we're kind of getting towards the end here, I am really curious about any sort of little Easter egg slide guitar tricks. Or are there any like I've got one specific one that might be a great way to start it.
Yeah, show me.
And it's not a trick at all, but it is, well, I mean, it's like kind of a trick. It's a really cool effect. And if you've seen me playing in my videos, you might recognize this. But what I love to do, and I'm using a volume pedal down here for the volume, so I can strum. Right, you can see that's, yeah, I love to use the volume knob as well, but I've just become a volume pedal fan. I really love it. So one of the things that I love to do is to sort of catch a harmonic and then slide it around. And this kind of has like a crazy sort of theremin sound. I'll demonstrate and then I'll explain what I'm doing, but it sounds something like this.
Man, it sounds so cool.
Thanks. So and you know, so all I'm doing here, folks, is I'm hitting a harmonic and I'm hitting it at the 12th fret. And I like to hit the harmonic with the volume pedal off, catch the note, and what you do is I picture like an airplane landing as smoothly as possible. The airplane is your slide, and it's going to land in between the nut and the first fret. That's how you sort of catch the note. And then from there, you can just slide it around. But it really makes those sort of gospel vocal licks like kind of come to life. Like here, I'll do it once more. And the trick is that once you catch a note, as soon as you attack it again, it's not going to be a harmonic. You could do the whole like pick 12 frets up higher thing like this. And all I'm doing there is I'm fretting the 5th fret, and then I'm literally picking the harmonic 12 frets up. So this is the 17th fret of that 2nd string. So that's another way that you can achieve that same effect. But Walt, when I showed you this earlier, you said that you can even do this with other harmonics.
Yeah, exactly. So like, yeah, I can only really expand on what you've said, and I'm definitely no master at this. But half the time I try to go for the harmonic, and it never sounds out properly. But it's still the fun of going for it. But yeah, you can do it with any harmonic on the neck. Say like on the 7th fret, you have. And then I was about to go for the 4th fret there, but that one's a bit of a harder one. And then you can also go with chords, like doing. And I guess you can take this as far as your imagination will let you, like depend, because you like the cool thing about this tuning as well. You've got all these different options of intervals. Because like standard tuning, you're tuned in fourths mainly with 1/3, whereas here we've got the option of fourths, minor third, major third, 4th again, and then a 5th. So you can sort of play around with different ideas of this whole harmonic. You get diminished. So yeah, I got a little bit out there, but yeah, it's you can go as far as your imagination will let you.
That's awesome, man. And you know, I love that you and I know have spent a ton of time just sounding like crap playing slide guitar.
Oh yeah.
Yeah. You know, because we're trying stuff like this. You know, we're experimenting, and I've hit so many like dud notes. Like I've gone like this so many times.
Exactly. Yeah.
And nothing's there.
More
and
often than not.
You know, so just I really appreciate that example where some of it sounds really great, and some of it might, just be like not as good as the other parts. It's great to just, that definitely happens, and that's part of what shapes your sound, is that you don't just play great the whole time and there's never a mistake. Your sound really comes from making a ton of mistakes and then understanding what's, refining and improving. And
certainly, that's well put.
Yeah, and so here's one other trick. I know I showed you this a minute ago. This is kind of from Sunny Landreth, And this is a funny, like, I don't quite know what to call this. I feel like it's like a glowing harmonic or something, but I've seen Sonny Landreth do this quite a bit. And so this is up at the 12th fret, and this is very specifically where I think that this sound comes from hovering your slide right over the harmonic. It kind of glows, and when you mute the notes, they don't really mute, but they do this really kind of trippy thing. Let me just demonstrate, see if I can get it. It's a little tricky, but what I love about this and the sort of theremin catching a harmonic is that we're not talking about some new stomp box that you have to have. You know, we're not like talking, oh, well, then I turn this pedal on and it sounds different. This is how we touch the strings and how we can get these different sounds. So here's this Sonny Landreth thing. Try this out. I really like these sort of tricks too, because I feel like if you can do anything like this, your slide playing's just going to come up. And you know, you're not going to feel so tentative and timid when you play. The way that we touch the strings and coax these sounds out of the strings has everything to do with the tone, how how you feel about hearing something. We're not careful. I mean, we're careful and everything, but we're not like, ooh, don't do that. We're really digging in when we're playing. So,
Yeah.
so I'd tell everybody, don't be afraid to jump in head first, really mess up if you're going to, because these sounds don't happen if you just kind of half-ass it. So here's this Sonny Landreth thing. Check this out.
Man, it's like a flutter. It's really cool. I want to try it. I want to see if I can.
Yeah,
get that
yeah.
happening. Obviously, it'll be a down a third, but yeah.
Yeah.
I don't know if I'm doing it properly. Yeah, it keeps the note going. I guess because we are on that harmonic. I'm not sure if I'm doing it properly or not, but it's definitely a fun thing to play around with.
Yeah, exactly, man. And I'm definitely not Sonny Landreth, so I'm just doing what I've seen him do and then tried myself. But I think just the biggest point here is just whenever we're watching Sonny Landreth, Derek Trucks, an old video of Dwayne Allman, any of our slide heroes, it's really cool to actually get inside of what these guys are doing. As much as they're legends, they're humans. And they also made mistakes. And they just have, all of this stuff that we've talked about just goes into slide guitar, open E tuning. It shouldn't be some limiting factor. It should actually be something that inspires you to find new sounds and
Exactly. Yeah.
have your own
that sort of
voice.
leads me on to something like a lot of the time, like you said, it can be a limiting factor for people. So people don't pick up the slide at all because, oh, my guitar's not set up for slide, or I haven't learnt this tuning yet, or I don't know. It's just none of that should really matter. You should just get in and do it. Like, obviously there's going to be mistakes. We all made mistakes, as you said. So it's something, yeah, that shouldn't be too much thought process going into starting doing something like that.
Absolutely, man. Yeah, no, everything you just said, that's great. And I'm curious, Walt, again, thank you so much for joining me today. This is really awesome. It's just a thrill to have you here. Are there things that we'd like everybody out here who's watching this to check out of yours? Where can I steer people to go check out more of your stuff?
Oh, for sure. I've got all my socials. I've tried to keep up to date. So like Instagram, YouTube. I'm starting to get a bit more on there, but it's taking me time. I've got a Patreon account, and I've got some new music in the works. So keep an eye out for that. Keep an ear out for that. I'm really looking forward to getting some blues rock music out. So it's I have to say, yeah, there's a fair bit in the works, but yeah, for the moment, all my socials are there, Patreon, and you can see me live occasionally if you're in Montreal.
Awesome, man. Cool. And on my note, or as far as Jules stuff that you guys can check out. Obviously, if you haven't already, please subscribe to the channel. There's lessons, there are going to be interviews, there's all sorts of stuff coming out. I also have Masterclass courses available. These go into just great detail, and there's PDF transcriptions of everything that I play on all sorts of things. I'm coming out with Masterclass courses all the time now, and a little sneak peek. This is going to get released very soon, and this is, you might not be able to see it that great, but this is my signature Jules Leyhe liquid slide. This is my favorite slide, the liquid slide. I'm really happy to have teamed up with these guys. This is a really wonderful, it's a double glass walled slide, and it's actually filled with liquid on the inside. And then on the actual inside of the slide itself, there's a little texture layer, and it helps just provide some grip so that it doesn't slip, and it just feels really great. So this is kind of a sneak peek. We're just about to release this very soon. So those are some things of mine to check out. And we also teach lessons. Both of us teach lessons. So if you guys want, please send us a note, and we'd love to work with you guys. But Walt, I'd say that just about wraps it up. We have so much stuff in common and just so much to talk about. I have a feeling we're going to have to do this again soon. Please let us.
So.
Yeah, let us know down in the comments if you guys have questions, or if you have things that you want us to go over. We are planning on doing a part 2 to this. So let us know if there are things that might be confusing that you want us to, clarify, or what you'd like to see, maybe hear us play a song next time or something. But yeah, thank you so much, Walt. Great to see you, man. And we'll do it again sometime really soon.
Yeah, thank you so much, Jules. I really enjoyed it. Cheers.
Take care, you guys. Have a great day. Hey, how's it going, everybody? I'm Jules Leyhe. I'm thrilled to announce that my Derek Trucks Slide Guitar Masterclass is now available. This class is over 2 hours of in-depth study of Derek Trucks' greatest licks, his signature sounds. Everything that you're going to learn in this course is designed to make you a better player and ultimately make you sound more like yourself. I'm a Berklee College of Music graduate and a professional musician of the last 15 years. I've shared the stage with Buddy Guy, Jimmy Vaughn, Chris Kane, and a slew of other blues greats. They've taken me under their wing and have taught me so many things that I want to now share with you guys. Check the link in my bio or julesleyhemusic.com to get your Derek Trucks Slide Guitar Masterclass today.